How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Sam, how are you?
I'm good. Happy Monday. It's so good
Oh,
to see your face.
I know. I know. I'm like sitting next to the sun as much as I can, as
That's
much as there's sun right now. And yeah, it's good to see you.
so good to see you. Thank you for joining me on here. I know people will keep kind of popping in, but for everyone
Yeah.
here with us, I wanted to say thanks for joining SB Lives. This is my second IG Live episode. My very dear friend Nitika Chopra. And I'm really excited to chat today because when I started thinking about who is in my network who can really add value and inspiration and have this discussion about self-love and self-care during such a complicated moment in our lives, I immediately thought of you. So Nitika is such a rock star. We met years ago and I have followed just a very small part of a very impressive long career. She has an online magazine, Bella Life, for years. She just recently launched Chronicon, which is all about. I cannot wait to talk about that. So I'm super, super excited that you're here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's so nice. I feel like this is a treat. So thanks for chatting today.
Of course. So tell me, just, to get us rolling, it's a
Yeah.
weird time. I know we're over 30 days in our own homes. So what have you been doing? Like what has a typical day been looking like for you?
Yeah, well, I live in Manhattan typically, but I moved to my parents' place in New Jersey on Saturday. It was 6 weeks that I've already been here, which is crazy. I think I kind of, being a part of the chronic illness community and having a compromised immune system, I think I just was a little bit faster in like wanting to quarantine than I think other people just because I was so nervous about it. So I've been here for over 6 weeks, and yeah, I mean, there have been some productive, like great days, but it's mostly been sort of how the sky is right now, like there's moments and pockets of sun that peek through the clouds, but it's like it's pretty dark out there right now. And it's like, as a sensitive person and as someone who is an empath and deeply cares about people being safe and feeling okay, there's just a lot of palpable grief, even if we're so lucky and so grateful to be okay and my loved ones are okay. But my brother is a resident, and so he's working in the New York City hospitals, and there's just a lot. There's just a lot going on.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
My husband's also in his resident.
Yeah.
Like on one hand, I feel so lucky that I'm home and I'm okay and I'm healthy. On the other hand, I know that there are doctors and nurses and healthcare workers who are busting their asses for us to keep us safe and healthy. And
Yeah.
I think it's a time for reflection and it's complicated. And I totally hear you that today's a gray day and then sometimes the sun peeks through. So
Totally.
it's important to keep perspective that way. Um,
Yeah.
so on that note, because you are an entrepreneur and you do have so many sort of baskets, right? Like I know you were aware of better expression, where you
Mhm.
lead conferences and you have chats, you have small support groups and coaches, so many different things. So how are you staying motivated? Because like I woke up today and I was like, I just want to lay on the couch. I don't want to even put on a real shirt. And some days are like that. So what are you
Yeah.
find your motivation?
Well, I think a huge part of it is like, and I've always said this, but like now even more than ever, we have to honor when we feel that way, right? Like there's some days where I could have like not put any makeup on, not like, done my hair a little. I barely did my hair, but even just tried to make it look reasonable or whatever. I could have not done that today and that would have been fine. And there's some days where I have something on the calendar and I'm like, "Oh, this is actually really good because I'm excited to talk to this person and I know that this is not like it's not a heavy lift for me. Like I can show up and I'm safe and I'm comfortable and we're having a conversation that is important to me." So I'm like, "Okay, that's great."
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think it's really important for me to just honor what I'm feeling. And I think for everybody watching, it's like No, it's not going to be this like marathon of productivity all the time. And I think the moments that have been really helpful to me are the moments when I'm actually able to call a friend or talk to someone and say like, am I the only one who's like not launching an enterprise right now or like training for the marathon whenever it's going to open again or, you know, doing high intensity like interval training in the middle of their apartment? I'm just like I just don't know, you know what I mean? So I think it's actually really powerful. Like the thing for us to do right now is to honor exactly where we are in these moments and not push ourselves, you know? And I think that that's kind of what's needed.
And I just saw that comment come in about feeling guilty
Yeah.
sometimes. And I think that is something that is also a process of what's happening with social media. Like on one hand, it's great. Engagements are up over 30% right now. It's a really great time to be working on your business, your brand, whatever. Same time, I think we're also spending a lot more of our lives looking at everyone else's diet, exercise, fitness, face mask, bubble bath, whatever you've seen. And
Yeah.
it can be a little bit daunting, right? Because it's like we
Yeah.
don't know where to find our place in that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's where, you know, I don't want to like over promise that this is like the holy grail, but I think for me, my spiritual practice has always been like such a huge part of my life. And I think in the first couple of weeks, I was like, all right, God, I know you're there, but you're really annoying me right now. So I can't with you right now, you know?
Like we
And
need
now I've been leaning, yeah, I'm just like, you're in a timeout. Like, this is inappropriate what you have done. So I'm just gonna like, just try to weed through the human stuff for a little bit. And now I'm sort of, you know, it's pushing me to go back inward. It's pushing me to be like, to journal more. I'm listening to audiobooks and I'm catching up on podcasts and I'm finally able to sort of absorb some of that information that's nourishing for me, and not spend so much time just being like, oh my God, everybody else is, you know, launching this TikTok empire or doing this thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm on TikTok. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not on it. But if I don't want to do a TikTok video 3 times a day or even for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, it's nothing's going to happen and it's going to be fine, you know? And so I think just taking that pressure off and finding that balance within something that's not balanced at all right now, I think is really helpful.
yeah, that's such good advice, just being kind to ourselves from the queen of self-love, obviously. But on that note, so I feel like I was
Yeah.
trying to come up with our buzzwords and it's like self-love, self-care, gratitude,
Yeah.
well, these words are being so thrown around that I feel like are losing their weight a little bit. So in that, how do we kind of reconnect with what that even means anymore? Like, is self-love, putting on a face mask and taking extra time to wash your hair, or is self-love doing that kind of internal work and really honoring how we feel? Like, if you want to wear the sweatpants, or, I mean, you tell me, what do you think of those words?
Yeah, I mean, so I've always felt like self-care was such an esoteric buzzword and like this intangible, you know, sort of aspirational thing that I was just like, what is that? I don't understand what people mean because when people say self-love and then they show a picture of them doing like a downward dog or planking for an hour or whatever, or drinking a green juice or whatever, and I'm just like, well, I can't really eat raw juice like that. And I can't really do a downward dog because of my arthritis or whatever it is, right? I'm just like, well, then how do I access self love? Like, how does that look for me? And so I sort of came up with a definition, for myself, really, like years ago. And I always say that my definition of self love is being more committed to your happiness than to your suffering in every single moment. And for me, happiness, there was a levity to that that really spoke to me. But, you know, for someone else, it could be being more committed to their strength or to their peace or whatever that thing is for them. They're sort of the highest vibration that they want to be more committed to. And I say in every single moment because for me, when I thought about this, it was when I was in my bed. I have psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. And there were many years of my life when I couldn't walk without severe pain. So I was bedridden, stuck in my house, a lot like, you know, we are stuck in our houses right now. And so it wasn't about these grand gestures. It wasn't about running a marathon or meeting 100 friends or doing these huge things. It was like, okay, I'm in bed, and in every moment, I have a choice to either be further in my suffering, in my depression, in my sadness, and my misery, which sometimes I absolutely chose that. And I think that that is okay. And I still sometimes choose that, where I'm like, nope, I need to sit with these feelings. I need to be in this. And this is what's important for me right now. But the act of self love, I have found, is those moments when I am more committed to my happiness than to my suffering. So that looks, sometimes it might look like for someone, oh, I'm going to do some yoga or I'm going to eat a healthy meal. That act is not wrong. That's not what's wrong. It's that we sort of project that like that end result is the thing, and that's not really what the thing is. It's actually the choice in those moments. Like, how are we choosing to be different in that moment? How are we choosing something higher? So for me this morning, I was like, I had breakfast and then I was like, I might just stay in my pajamas for most of the day because I just wasn't feeling great. You know, I was just sort of, as you were saying, it's a Monday and Mondays feel really weird right now. But then I had this other moment, the next moment, and I was like, you know what? It would feel really great for me to take a really nice warm shower and just like do some nice skincare and, you know, put on a cute sweatshirt and like put my hair up because I really need a haircut. And just, you know what I mean? Just for me, right? Like I was sitting on my bed working for hours after I did that. It wasn't to be on camera. So that was me choosing a higher thought. That was me choosing my happiness over my suffering, over my, I'm going to stay in these janky pajamas for another day and just be a little miserable. As I said, it's a balance and it's a practice, but that's really what I find self-love is being more committed to your happiness than to your suffering in every single moment.
And it's about the process more than the outcome too, which I think is really important. If I've learned anything really crazy time, I so projected 20 steps forward all the time. It's like I don't even remember thinking about where I was in a moment because my mind was so far ahead. And I think that's a lot to do with what you're saying, where it's like, what's going to feel right and positive and, you know, nurturing here and now instead of when I can post about it in 10 minutes on Instagram that I'm the self-love girl.
Yeah.
So that what you're saying and just focusing on the process is such a good, important lesson for this time.
Yeah.
So,
Really like pushing us to be present. Like that is what, you know, that is what this time is doing. I'm not sure that I'm there where I'm like, oh, there's a silver lining to this moment. I don't believe in toxic positivity, you know. I think that can be very damaging. There's a lot of grief and sadness that's happening right now, and that is very real. But I'm trying to be a student of presence right now because it is literally all we have is this moment. And so that's a spiritual practice, right? Like what you're saying, like I don't have anywhere to go to post the event picture of saying that I went to this really cool thing and then I'm going to post it and it's going to get likes. And it's like, I don't got none of that, you know, none of us do right now. So how can I just be in my room at my parents' place in New Jersey? And that's it. End of sentence. There's nothing else but this. It's a practice.
are you sticking to any kind of sort of schedule for yourself while you are home? Because I know it's easier to put things off. Like I'm finding that because I don't really have deadlines to meet the same way I usually do, I procrastinate so much longer. And like this Libra loves to procrastinate. So like are you giving yourself some sort of like outline for the day of things that you want to get accomplished? Or are you just taking it one day at a time?
Yeah, no, I'm not doing any kind of any kind of outline. I'd like to think that I'm a very organized, structured person. I mean, you know me enough to know that, like even with my events and like, you know, yeah, like I am so all about my calendar invites and, you know, like just I love it. I love it. It makes me so happy. Like you can see my eyes are like bright and wide because I'm like, I love a schedule. I love a schedule. But you know, I think the first few weeks I would try like every day. I would be like, okay, I'm gonna wake up. Normally at home, I wake up at like 7 a.m. That's typically my sweet spot. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna wake up at 8 a.m. because I don't need to push myself. My body clearly needs extra rest. And that was just my starting point of like, that's one thing I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna try to work out this many times a week, or you know, things like that. I rarely wake up at 8 a.m. and I feel guilty about it every single day. And I work through it every single day. By the end of the day, by the time I'm ready to go back to sleep, I'm like, it's okay. You know, but I rarely wake up when I say that I want to, because I have a hard time sleeping the night before, or I wake up too early and then I fall back asleep and then my schedule's all messed up. It's just, I've had to really surrender the schedule, you know, and it's not like I'm not doing anything, right? It's like we're still launching stuff with Chronicon, we're still working on projects, but the rhythm is very different. You know, I mean, you know, you've had your own business forever. I've had my own business forever. We are used to having to make our own hustle.
Yes.
That's not new. But I actually said this to my therapist recently. I was like, I find that if I was working at like 150% before, which I feel like we both were, just because we love work so much, and it's like, yes, we're going to do this, and we're going to speak here, we're going to do this thing and that thing. I'm at like 30% right now.
Yeah.
That's just the honest truth. And it's hard. It's hard to be at 30%. I don't feel like I'm choosing 30%. I feel like 30% is happening and I'm learning to accept it.
Well, that's the word you use. That's that surrender word. That's been
right.
my overall theme for quarantine is like, just give up, because, or not even give in is a better way to say it, because we have to surrender right now. There are things that are so far beyond our control.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of this. You know, last night I did not sleep at all. And I actually was like awake dreaming of things that I have done at work that I won't probably get to do, you know, because companies, I don't know if they're going to still stand after this, or at least not in the same way. And I was like dreaming my old life. And I woke up this morning being like, this is kind of a shock to the system. I don't feel great about having spent my sleeping hours in that kind of stressful situation. And that's why, you know, I was a little knocked out this morning, but I think it's all part of the grieving process. Like it's all going to continue to be a roller coaster until we can get back to some sort of normalcy.
Mm-hmm.
And just remember that even if we're at 30% now, we'll bounce back up, like charging your phone. You know, I don't know 150 right away, but we'll hit, you know, we'll hit that again, and we'll surge forward, I hope. But on a positive note, tell us about.
Oh, sure. Well, Chronicon is my life's work. I feel like it's my child. I love it so much. As I mentioned, I was diagnosed with psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis, and I've had those conditions for about 30 years now. And so it's been a huge part of my journey and my life. And I founded Chronicon just out of realizing that there was such a need to break the cycle of isolation that so many of us who have a chronic illness specifically deal with. And, you know, when I was going through a lot of my ups and downs with my health, I sort of thought I was the only one. Even though there are other people in my family who have other chronic illnesses, there's still something so isolating about it. And I think for those people watching, I think that's true for whatever sort of trauma you go through, right? If someone loses a loved one, or they go through some sort of harassment that's really traumatizing, or they have financial trauma. I mean, there's so many areas that we experience trauma. For me, it was mostly, you know, in my body through these conditions. But I always felt like I was the only one. I don't know why that is about trauma. It feels so personal and just so isolating. So I kind of assumed that it was just me out there. And then I started doing research about it, and I started looking into it and realizing that there were over 133 million people in this country alone that have a chronic illness. And by the end of 2020, they suspect, sorry, that there will be 157 million people that will have a chronic illness by the end of this year. And maybe now that's even increased with everything that's going on. But it's rampant, you know, and I started asking questions and talking to people just slowly in small moments. I had some dinners that I know you came to one of them, and you know, just started to just ignite these little conversations. And yeah, and then I realized there's a huge need for it. So I launched Chronicon last year. We had our first live in-person conference. I'm so glad that we did that last year for 1,000 reasons, but especially given everything now. And yeah, and now we're going to keep going forward. We're doing chronic convos over on our Instagram, and
So cool.
yeah, we have a newsletter and lots of stuff happening over there. So yeah.
And a question for you, you know, on the kind of topic of a conference, right? Because conferences used to be an in-person experience. Now we've had to kind of turn and go digital with those kind of. But I know that one of the kind of key things about conferences is the ability to like meet, make friends, and network with other people who are in the same boat or who can relate whatever the that brought you there.
Yeah.
So how can we like still support that sense of connection? Like, is that through Facebook groups and like chronic conversations, as you mentioned, where you have those kind of like more personal, smaller moments with people, or how do you highlight that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of it is still being figured out in some ways. I think we're sort of, you know, stepping into a new frontier in the way that so many more people are going to be doing this now. But I would say that, you know, digitally, there's always been the ability for us to create community. Like we're doing that here right now through this conversation, right? So my audience is coming in, your audience is coming in, like we're all coming together in this moment. And that's just, I think, where it starts. Like, how can we start to put ourselves out there and say, as, you know, leaders or people who are in the spaces that we're in, like, hey, I want to have this conversation. Who else wants to have this conversation? You know, it's really, I think, just that simple. And I think there's a lot of pressure, at least I feel pressure sometimes because I've done live events as a part of my work for the last 10 years. It's always been a piece of my work. So I think there's a lot of pressure for me that like it has to be at a certain scale or it has to be so massive because now it's digital and like you can, you know, reach so many more people digitally. But I think what I'm slowly kind of learning and owning is that like that's actually not helpful and it's actually not true. You know, we can make an impact with 20 people that are on this live or, you know, with the 5,000 people that are following Chronicon or whatever. It doesn't have to be 50 million just because it's digital. And I think last week we did a Chronic Convo with some of our Chronic crew, like the people who follow us on there. And we featured them on the conversation, and it was really, really powerful. It was a conversation that moved me, and I think is what it's all about, right? We only had time to feature 5 people. It wasn't like we featured 5,000, you know, but it was meaningful and it was intentional. And so I think, you know, you can't really hide on the screen, right? So that's like another thing. It's like we're sort of being pushed to take off any filters that we might have or release any barriers that we might have and just be our full selves. And yeah, I do think that that can happen digitally for sure.
Well, and the cool thing about digital is that, you know, it's like even with these Instagram live conversations, if you don't get to catch it live, you can record it, you can share it, it can get circulated. And so when you're creating digital content, it can live for a lot longer sometimes than.
Yeah, it's true.
Of course, you capture a live event, but this is easily shareable conversations, and that can also contribute to the building of community, which I think is a cool thing that we've got going with Instagram.
Totally.
Switching gears a little bit, because we met in clothing. So I'm a private stylist, personal stylist, as you know. And so I have seen the impact thousands of times of how what you wear in a certain situation can completely change your energy, the outcome of a situation. Clothing is so important. And right now, I'm just looking forward to being back in real clothing because to be honest, I'm not the girl who's going to put on a ball gown to walk around my own house. Just
Me
not
neither. Me neither.
What sort of, I guess, either memories, touch points do you have about, you know, the clothing contributing to your self-love, your confidence, the way that you carry yourself?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot actually. Because, you know, I mean, I've called Sam in a panic many times, being like, what am I going to wear? Help me. You know, she helped me pick out my green dress for Chronicon. For any of you who've seen the live stream or the pictures, that Chronicon green dress was thanks to Sam. So, yeah, I think about, I have nostalgia, like sort of how you were saying that you have those dreams, you know. I have a lot of nostalgia around clothing actually, just because I I don't know that I'm like the most fashionable person, but I know that my fashion is a representation of my self-expression, whatever that is, you know? So it's like on the days when I'm going on like a full day of meetings, like I loved, you know, I use Rent the Runway a lot. So I've paused everything now, but when I was actively in my life, I use Rent the Runway and I loved getting the new shipments of clothing and being like, oh my God, I'm going to use this for these meetings. And I feel powerful in this thing, or, you know, I'm like a Bollywood person on the inside. So I'm always trying to activate my Bollywood sensibility. Even like my sweatshirts have bedazzles on them. I can't help it. But you know, so I miss that. I miss, knowing what that feels like. I miss feeling that, you know, even just like my high-waisted, like dark skinny jeans. It's like that, those are kind of my uniform, especially living, you know, in Manhattan with my like cute studded boots that I feel like you also helped me pick out or something at some point through pictures. But you know, like those studded boots and then my bag and my coat, and it sounds frivolous. It can be looked at as frivolous, but I know you know this firsthand, that it's just a part of all of it. It's a part of how I express myself. It's a part of how I find comfort. It's beautiful too. It's a part of beauty, and beauty is so comforting. And you know, there's just something that feels wonderful about accessing beauty, you know. And it really, I think now more than ever, I've really understood it's not about what other people find beautiful. It really is about how you feel, and that like when I would wear those clothes, I felt beautiful. And so, you know, just trying to find those moments at home, it's hard, you know, like I'm like, this is I think one of the few studded things that I have, but I'm wearing leggings, you know, and I mean, they're hot pink leggings, but still they're leggings. And I put on I'm a big jewelry person. So I put on my rings, like on days where I sort of have work stuff. I put on my rings because it makes me feel a little bit more, I guess, in normal life, or like my earrings or, you know, things like that. But it's been sad not to have those things around for sure.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about the rings? So my sister is a jeweler. Oh, and she of course just wrote yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yes, sure.
about her from a long time ago. So I was a super rings person, like as the first thing in jewelry that I loved. Like always, how many rings? I'd wear two
Yeah.
rings on every finger when I was growing up. And she always said, rings are for you because you're looking at them. They're on your hand and you're enjoying them. Whereas your necklaces, your earrings, you can feel that they're there, but you don't really get to experience them.
Oh,
But
that's so sweet. Yeah, I never thought of that.
kind of a cool thing. So I love that you're in your sweats, but you're like, you've got your rings on.
I have my emerald on, and I'm just like this ring has a lot of, all my rings that I wear have like meaning to me, you know, like I got them at a certain time for a certain reason at certain moments in my life. And I'm just like, oh, so whenever I look at them, I'm just like, oh yeah, like that was, you know, that was this moment, or this was for this reason. And yeah, it's very nostalgic with the jewelry and the clothes right now.
That's that fashion nostalgia. I love that.
Yeah.
So a lot of my friends, and I'm sure your friends too, have either been furloughed or laid off because that's what's happening right now. And
Yeah.
I know I've heard a lot of them themselves very painful stories about themselves, right? Like,
Mm.
I'm not worth keeping. I am,
Mm.
still working because I was valuable to the company. And so this is kind of a soul crushing side effect of what's happening now, where people are just feeling like they are, not of importance to the companies that they worked for. But I know that that's not true. It's easy as a friend to say, it has nothing to do with you. It's just the situation that we're in. So that kind of being kind to ourselves, the stories we tell ourselves, what do you think of what's happening with that?
Yeah, I mean, when you say that, I think what first comes up for me is like the disposability that people are feeling on a very deep level speaks to the systemic disposability.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't speak to them. It speaks to the systemic disposability, how disposable we have become as human beings if we don't operate or have access to a very small operating system, right? And that is you can donate millions of dollars or you're a certain celebrity status or whatever, right? It's like this very, very small group of people that can actually operate from that system. Otherwise, we've been kind of shown that we're disposable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand why they feel that way. I totally get it because this is what we're being shown, right? Like you were valuable one day and then the second we have a crack in the system, you're out. But I challenge people to notice that this is systemic disposability. This is not about them. So if that is what we're noticing, then what do we do about the system?
Yeah.
And that's sort of the way, yeah, that's sort of the way my mind goes is like, okay, let me start with the wound. What is that? Let me honor it. Let me understand it. And then let me sort of start to dissect it. And what's the truth there? What's in that? And I think if we're left with this as systemic and we can actually make a difference in the system, it doesn't really feel like we can most of the time, I'm not going to lie, but we're told that we can, right? So how do we take that and sort of try to chip away at it? And I think for me, I think I'm focusing on like how do I get people to vote in this election, which feels like it's going to be insane. But I'm thinking about voting. I'm thinking about voting, in things like the primaries and smaller moments when people don't necessarily think about voting. And I'm like, okay, those moments were important. I'm also thinking about how do I use my voice? And that doesn't mean that you have to have a huge platform. That can be your voice in your family. You know what I mean? Like, it can be your voice with your friends. It doesn't have to be like a social media platform. But how do I sort of, when I see these systemic differences and I see these cracks, how do I speak to them? And I don't just become a part of, complacency and a part of avoiding and then allowing and continuing and all of that. So that's been a huge part of it for me, and it's a training, honestly, because we've been trained, and I think about this even with like self-love stuff, right? Like when people say they want to start loving themselves more, I always say to people, don't be so hard on yourself. You have been not knowing how to love yourself. Like I just turned 39, right? So let's say today was the first day that I was starting my self-love practice. I was not loving myself for 39 years.
Right.
So why would I think that tomorrow morning I should have this 39-year journey just completely turned around and I've got it figured out? That's not kind, actually. You know what I mean? So I think the same thing with this disposability, worthiness, and the systemic issue is that it's okay if it feels weird, if you don't understand it at first, if you kind of feel like you're making decisions and taking steps out into an abyss and like nothing's happening. You're probably right on track, honestly. But it's not about you taking 3 steps and then the whole thing shifts. It's small moments every single day, continuously, maybe over a lifetime, you know? So yeah, that's what I would say to that.
Yeah. And even thinking on that note, one thing that I'll ask them in those conversations is, did you love your job before? Were you happy? You just didn't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Now that you're kind of like forced to step back and re-examine all of the things in your life, really,
Yeah.
you can make a decision, and we're given that opportunity out of this is we can say, okay, was I happy before? Was that the job I want, in the role I want, at the company I want, or that I'd rather be doing? And that's actually something that inspires me about this time, is that we will hopefully come out of it with a surge in creativity and entrepreneurship, you know, hopefully a lot of people doing really cool new things and taking action where it's needed. And so hopefully we get there. So I have a little bucket list for post quarantine of like, every time I think of something, whether it's like, I want to have a glass of wine with Nitika, or I want to go to Italy, you know, no matter how big or small, I'm writing it down because I want to remember the things that I missed and wanted after this. So what's on your list?
Well, I definitely, I was kind of already thinking this before quarantine that like eventually I wanted to just travel more. Like I find that I grew up all over the world, but like as an entrepreneur and an adult, it's like travel feels like such a luxury unless it's for work. So I think just traveling is like the biggest thing. And I think although I've visited and been to a lot of places, I just don't feel like I really took them in the same way that I would have as an adult because I did a lot of my traveling when I was younger. So I just want to like go everywhere and experience everything. And I just like a lot of my nostalgia moments are really simple. Like they're just, you know, having a lovely meal in Soho with a friend, and like sharing dessert at like a open, you know, cafe in the summer, or you know what I mean? Like it's really simple, sweet stuff. It's not complicated. I can't wait to get my hair cut. Like real talk, this high ponytail thing is, you know, only going to be somewhat okay for so long. It's just my hair. I have layered hair and like wavy hair, and it's just, you know, it needs maintenance, you know? So it's a simple thing like that, but I just like, I cannot wait. And like go to the nail salon. I mean, it's so funny. Like all these little things, like they're not big. I feel like living in New York and following my dreams every day is already like such a privilege. So my bucket list just really consists of like just getting back some normalcy. I don't know when we're going to get to do that, but I can't wait.
Yeah. And so with the big launch this past year of Chronicon, in the next couple of years, what can we hope to see? What are you going to be doing?
Yeah, so we definitely have had to pivot, you know, like we were hoping to do a Chronicon live again in the fall, and then we thought maybe in January of 2021. Now I'm just like putting that on hold. I'm just sort of like, you know what, until the universe gives me a clear yes, you can meet in person, let's just focus online. So we're working through a bunch of different options. I'm thinking about some content like subscription, like homes that we might create for our audience. We're also building out our newsletter, which is really exciting. And yeah, I think for now, like just definitely people keeping an eye at Chronicon Official and checking out the Chronic Convos we have there, and any announcements that we have to make, we'll be making them there. But we're still like in the digestion, like incubator sort of phase of figuring out like what do we want to offer people during this time that's going to really make a difference. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled.
I can't wait to see all of that.
Thank you.
My last fun little game for us is a lightning round of questions.
Okay.
Okay, so girls' night in or girls' night out?
Well, now girls' night out. Normally I would say girls' night in, but like now definitely out. Let's all go out. When it's safe.
I'm with you. Mountain vacation or beach vacation?
Oh, beach vacation.
Okay. Dance or sing?
Sing.
I know you're a singer.
Yeah.
I've seen videos.
Yes.
Rich or famous?
Rich or famous? I almost want to say neither, but I guess rich because then I can give all the money to people who need it.
Good answer. All dressed up or all dressed down?
Well, now I can't wait to dress up. Before you like literally would have to pay me to put like a dress on and make myself, you know, dress up, but now I'm just like, give it to me. All the fancy clothes, even heels, maybe even heels.
Oh my God, we're gonna see you strutting in stilettos.
I mean, you just never know.
Okay, scary movie or rom-com?
Rom-com all the way. Hate anything scary. I'm too sensitive.
Okay. Massage or facial?
Facial.
Okay. And last one, cold pizza or cold Chinese food?
Pizza every day, all day. I would literally eat pizza all the time if I could.
You and me both. You and me both. Well, thank you so much. It's so good to see you. You shared so much important, valuable knowledge with us, and hopefully we will all be much kinder to ourselves and much more reflective after this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you for having
Yes, and everyone check Nitika at Nitika Chopra and at Chronicon and check out what she's up to. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you, Nitika.
me. Mwah. Bye, honey.